Hey Jim, good morning.
Hi, Ramya. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How's your evening?
Yeah, evening is good.
Good,
Almost
good.
end of the day for us.
Yeah, how was your day? Did you have a good day?
Oh yes, I met a customer, so I think nothing can be a good day than meeting a customer.
There you go. That's awesome. Plus, we get to talk about OKRs and KPIs. How fun is that?
I know, I know. So I was thinking that I would do I've done an introduction presentation slide for you, and then I'm going to actually read the first paragraph that you showed it to me. And then probably uh, I'll let you to introduce the rest, or do you want me to go ahead? Because I wanted to give you some opportunity to talk about yourself.
Well, and I realize that we're short on time, so I don't want to take too much time either. So I mean, I'll defer to you on what you think is best.
Okay, take it on then.
Perfect.
So we have 5 more minutes. Let's wait for people joining in. Let them join in, and we can start then.
Awesome. Where's everyone from? We've got Jane, Caesar, Nethra,
Yeah, yeah.
Karki.
I
Got a
mean,
few
this
folks.
time it's been really global. I've got people from Mongolia, I've got people from Dubai, from US, and from the UK and Canada. And there've been a lot of people who signed up globally this time. Let's see.
Yeah, well, that's
I would like
awesome.
to know them better post this webinar also. How's your day looking like? How's your weather there? It's raining, or it's a summer or winter for you?
So it's actually a beautiful day out there as we're approaching fall, and so I think it's
Oh,
supposed to be about 68 degrees today. So
oh, okay.
should be pretty nice. We had some impressive thunderstorms come through last night, and that was
Okay.
I always am fascinated by the lightning. It scares me, but I'm fascinated by it. And we had some pretty interesting thunderstorms last night.
Awesome. So I was supposed to be there in the US, California for the SaaS Boomi event, but my visa got delayed, and I don't think this year I'm going to make it. Probably next year I'm going to come there and catch you up.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. How's the weather where you're at? You're in Chennai, yeah?
Yeah, very much in Chennai. I've come to India.
Well, I was supposed to actually, so I got started in software development through a project that I was working on for the Department of Labor in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And
Okay.
we were redesigning our entire system. We were going to this web-based system, and our contractor that we chose was Tata Consulting. And so we had offshore development, and we had some of our resources there as well, and I was scheduled to go out there and work with the
Okay.
team for 6 weeks. But then September 11th happened, and so they canceled all travel and so forth.
Oh,
And so
okay.
I was really looking forward to going to it, though. Yeah, I really was looking forward to visiting Chennai. I heard so many good things about it, and I didn't get a
Okay.
chance to go.
You're going to come down and meet us then.
Yeah,
Well, today, I mean, it's always sunny and very hot here in Chennai.
yeah.
So since we are in the sea, right? We have the sea at our disposal. The humidity is pretty high always.
Yeah. Yeah. Humidity is no fun. I
I
don't
know.
have a whole lot of, there's not a whole lot of humidity here in where I live in Salt Lake City,
Mhm.
but I've experienced humidity before, and that's no fun.
I know. So we have 3 minutes to go. I think people have already joined in. Let's allow another 3 minutes, and then we can hit the road.
Perfect.
I'm so excited. I mean, this particular topic of mine has always been a great interest for me. So I wanted to really bounce that around because we've also been talking about it quite often. So I thought it's going to be an interesting discussion with you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it also. I don't know, when we were talking, when we brought up the topic, I was yeah, it's one of those interesting conversations, right? It's kind of its own unique conversation within the OKR framework, if that makes sense.
Yep, 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 yep. I think it's going to be a full house today. I think most of them are joining. I'm so excited. I'm allowing them another 2 more minutes to join, and then we can start.
Perfect. Do you have any big plans for the upcoming weekend? You doing anything fun?
Oh, nothing fun in the weekend. When you're an entrepreneur, no, you don't have a weekend. You have a work day. You have a really hectic work day, and probably a moderate work day, but never a weekend.
Yeah. But I enjoy working on the weekends because it's my
Yeah,
time to
with you.
really
Yeah,
focus on my stuff, right? I don't
very
have
true,
to
very true.
focus on client work or anything like that. I get to focus on my
I
business,
know,
and that's the part
very
I
true.
enjoy. Yeah.
Likewise,
I don't see it
likewise.
as work.
Though I mean though the kids complain, but I mean I try to kind of break time, take the time and then spend some time and then come back. I mean this is more of my go-to place.
Yeah. But the thing is, Ramya, is you're building something, right? And you're building something that's yours, and that's what's cool about it, you know?
Very
And
true,
that's
very true.
yeah, I feel you.
Awesome. So we all set to go. I'm allowing another 1 minute to get started. So I have a team member, Sophia, who's actually orchestrates the entire webinar, the community events, and things like that. And I think she's excited very much for the day. I think she's counting on fingers crossed on how it's going to be successful today.
Well, I put it out there this morning that we were going to have a
I
good
did say
call.
that. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Cool then. Let's get started, Jim. Thanks for joining us. Good evening, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. Thank you for joining us today. And I have Jim Apodaca today along with me to discuss a few interesting things, to take it ahead. But before we go ahead, I'll just, introduce you to the topic that we would be discussing today. It's one of my favorite topic that we would be talking a bit about the synergies between OKRs and KPIs, right? As consultants and a product owner, we quite often come across this from the organization or the leaders. How do you differentiate or how do you bring that together and make it successful while working together? And that's going to be a interesting topic today. And with me, I have Jim, and welcome to our community event and goal accomplishes our community which where we actually have a lot of senior folks, CEOs, and a lot of strategy heads talking about OKRs, and we have 100 plus community members there, and we've been adding members every day, and we have a community event every month once, and we have a weekly community get together also. It's so exciting to have everyone discuss about OKRs, goal setting in the community. You can join a community. The link is below. We will also reach out to you with the details later. And let me go ahead and introduce Jim. Jim has been very special. He's also been our partner in building our US customers, discussing with our US customer. And let me take time to introduce him. He's been an OKR coach and also an agile coach. He's a leader in change management as well. And he's the founder and president of Apodaca Consulting. And he's actually spent 15 years of leadership roles in Fortune 500 companies. He has worked in organizations including e-commerce, fintech, healthcare, and manufacturing as well. He's a entrepreneurial leader, to actually put it very simply. And he started his consulting journey to scale and help organizations to implement the growth strategies. He specializes in the areas of product operations and change management as well. And we've been fortunate enough to work with him, and he has also worked in a lot of along with a lot of startups, and the common pain points which actually arises in the startups. He's been able to work along, so his experience is so immense that he has worked in the problem statement that industry talks about. And he also has a passion for product development, as he was actually talking sometime before. And he does great program management, and also does operations, or likes operation handling as well. And here we are. We're very eager to listen to him about this very interesting topic. And it's a topic which is close to my heart most of the time. That's something which I had written all my product demos and all my calls. So this is something that I wanted to actually talk about. And let me go ahead and introduce who am I, right? I mean, who am I? My name is Ramya. If for those who already know me, those who don't know me, my name is Ramya. I'm one of the co-founders of Datalligence, and Jim and I work together in coaching and consulting. And what Datalligence does, Datalligence is a performance enablement platform where we help organizations to implement OKRs, performance management solutions, as well as KPIs. And we specialize in performance coaching and also OKR coaching. And we have coached more than 1,000 plus teams across the globe currently. And Jim has also been, we've been fortunate enough to work with Jim in implementing OKRs in few companies as well. So that's about who we are and who am I and who Jim is. And then let's jump into the conversations that we have. I'll just
Let's
stop the
do it.
share, and then probably we can just start the discussions. I actually wanted to bounce around the questions that we frequently get while we talk to the customers. And Jim and I was also talking about it while we planned this call. Uh, to start with, we just wanted to understand, Jim. Just introduce yourself, and probably you can start with my first question. The main differences between OKRs and KPIs. There you go. On to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think before we talk about the difference, though, we want to understand really what is the definition, right? What is the KPI? And understanding that, it's that key performance indicator, right? Versus the OKR, which is the objective and the key result. And I think really the difference there when you look at them is that key performance indicator, that's that company health metric, right? I mean, these are the health metrics of the company that we follow as an organization. When you look at the OKRs, I mean, it's that objective and key result that we're tracking for a much shorter time, right? It's the extent of that OKR cycle is when that objective and key result lives. And really, I think when you think about KPIs are really the culmination of everything that you're doing with your OKRs, right? So if you think about, like, if you have a weight loss goal of maybe 150 pounds, right? Or that is the goal that you want to be at. And you have maybe a body mass index of, I don't know, XYZ, right? Those are really kind of your KPIs in terms of your weight loss, right? And your health there. But when you think about your OKRs in that case, that would be, what am I doing for the next 3 months to train for this marathon, right? Or to train for this 5K? I'm watching my diet and I'm keeping under a certain calorie count, right? I'm also exercising so many days per week, and I've got an exercise routine. Those are the things that I'm doing during that 3-month cycle that are going to impact what my weight is and what my body mass index is, right? So those OKRs, those are the things that we're doing in that short time frame. And so, I think that's one of the biggest differences when you look at them from a time perspective. I mean, but there's a number of other differences really when you think about it too. I mean, your OKRs, rarely is it that are your OKRs tied to that achievement? Is that tied to compensation, right? And so when you look at your KPIs, oftentimes that's the case, right? If we have a revenue goal and we're in a sales organization, if we hit that goal, right, our compensation is tied there. But by the same token, if I have my OKRs and my OKRs are intended to be aspirational and I'm doing something aspirational during that cycle, right, we want to make sure that if I miss that target, that my compensation isn't affected there, right? And that's where psychological safety comes in. And, we could go down that path, but that's a whole other thing. But I think that's, those are some of really the key differences when you think about, the difference between the KPIs and the OKRs. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm doing all the talking.
Jim, with you on that, we often get confused, while you're implementing OKRs, we get this question quite often. So when you go and talk about, key result as being a metric driven, whenever you're talking about initiatives and key results, they say, I already have something in measuring in progress, right? Have KPIs to measure that. Why do I have to add a key result to an objective? Because can I actually continue to do measuring KPIs? This is something we get quite often understand from a customer and make them understand. How do you differentiate that? As you rightly said, the health metrics, what we call it, is a business as usual metric, right? I mean, we it would be better that you keep those metrics as business as usual and continue to measure them. But say, for example, that you're already achieving like 100K as a revenue, and do you really wanted to add OKR on top of it? When would you add OKRs on top of it, right? So if you wanted
Exactly.
to really scale up 10x or 5x, so probably that's when you continue to add OKRs on top of your KPIs and then start measuring. So that's been my experience also, and my thoughts that they both synergize together, as long as we don't confuse those metrics together, and both serve a different purpose altogether. KPIs help you to understand how am I traveling in the current business as usual metric, and OKRs help you to understand how aspirational am I actually traveling. I mean, is my destination being met? Especially the North Star goal that you're talking about, right? The North Star goal is met or not. So that's what OKR chases. I mean, instead of sticking to your business as usual metrics. That's the thought that I have, Jim, and that's I understand from the customers also. Some are mature enough to keep it separate. Some are actually keeping it separate and working. Some actually kind of want to stick to KPIs, or some wanted to work with OKRs. As long as your goals and aspirations are met, I think both the metrics serves a different purpose and they work very well together as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. Well said.
Likewise, yeah. So I just wanted to understand, my closing thought and my last question. When you're using it together, when I'm actually tracking both the metrics together, OKR for a different reason and KPIs for a different reason. So how am I actually effectively use both, right? I should not be lost sight in one area. I should not lose focus in other. So how do I actually effectively measure together? That's something which probably I wanted to know. Take your thoughts there, and kind of discuss on that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think that goes back to what you said earlier about in terms of why are we adopting OKRs, right? I think that's a fundamental question that we that as an organization we need to understand why we're doing that, right? Because I mean that allows us to select the right KPIs that are important to us as part of that strategy, right? And without that strategy, we don't have any KPIs, and it's hard to attribute OKR success to, any particular KPI. And so I think knowing why we're adopting OKRs helps us identify what those KPIs that we want to track, and then being able to take that back, to kind of to back into that in terms of what is it that we need to accomplish from an OKR perspective, right? I think that's where it's important to again understand kind of what is our strategy and why are we adopting OKRs. Yeah.
Very true, very true. And whenever you start, when you're talking, discussing with anyone, the first question probably what I would like to ask is why OKRs, right? So that's something is a thought-provoking one, and you also understand a lot from the other side, why actually they wanted to put OKR in place. The problem statement will itself help you to understand how do you differentiate between their existing business metrics, and also differentiate how they can actually track their aspirational goal. We have actually successfully worked, customers of ours work together with the synergy of OKRs and KPIs together. As a platform, also we help organization to keep both metrics separately and also review together. I mean, the review should happen together. Where am I traveling on my business as usual goals, and also where am I going on my aspirational goal? when combined together, I think it's a very powerful combination to be used, because while you concentrate on your aspirational goal, your KPI should also be met at the same time. The resources which gets allocated for the KPIs and the resources you need to actually achieve your North Star goal is very clear, and the ambiguity gets removed when you're doing this. So we know how to optimize the resource to ensure my current performance is on. At the same time, I'm also aspiring to what I'm supposed to achieve. So this gives a very clear bifurcation between both the metrics, and it's done together effectively. I think it fetches greater results. That's been our experience. How about you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I don't know, one of the things that I think is really most effective is is knowing where your OKRs link to KPIs, and how, and knowing which, monitoring those KPIs throughout your OKR cycle as well, right? I think it's important to create that correlation and understand that, if, as I'm monitoring this KPI, for example, if I'm implementing some new customer sign up flow, right, and suddenly my customer signups start to drop as part of that KPI, I
Very
want to
true.
know that as part of what I'm doing with my OKRs, right? Because I mean, I want to be able to pivot and at least identify that, hey, what I'm doing with my OKRs right now is affecting that KPI, right? So I think it's important to understand that. But I think it's also important to understand that in some cases you may not have a KPI that attributes to an OKR, right? I mean, you may have, from an engineering standpoint, maybe you have a compliance OKR that you have to meet by the end of the quarter. Well, where does that tie back to a particular KPI, right? And it may or may not reflect a certain KPI, but in that case, I think we want to, make sure that we've called that out, that, hey, look, this is why we're doing this OKR. And again, it may or may not attribute to a KPI, but I don't know, maybe you have some sort of KPI within the engineering org, right, that says that, hey, we need to be compliant by a certain date or something, right? So again, I think it's important that, that we create that connection between the OKR and the KPI when we can, so that we can monitor the impacts of what we're doing with our OKRs throughout that cycle, and the impact that it has on that KPI.
Rightly said. I mean, engineering example is definitely something which we come across quite often. And I was also bouncing our thoughts with a person recently, when some priority comes in place, right? I mean, you have three OKRs in place and fourth OKR comes up as a priority. It gives you, do you even have the room to execute those four together, because you had planned for three and you have fourth added. So we also have seen them, kind of understand, is my one of my OKR have actually started performing well and are gone on track? Should I move it to a KPI and start concentrating on the new OKR that will just come, which is an organizational priority, as well as it is going to help me to go to the next level. So that kind of balancing, if you have both metrics together, I can understand typically how do you move this particular metrics to a KPI back when it actually starts performing, and then have OKRs separately and start monitoring what delivers the results. That's been my take there. Maybe I wanted to ask you one question, probably, there's been a
Sure.
lot of misconception about how it can work together, right? I mean, there are a lot of stories about it. If you go Google, first thing that comes out is are OKRs and KPIs same?
Yeah.
Are they different? How they work together? What are the various misconceptions that is prevailing? And what is your experience, and how your customers have responded to it, and what's been their concerns there?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the misconceptions, I think some of them, I think the misconception starts with not investing in the framework, to be honest with you, right? When you're adopting an OKR, when you're looking at adopting the OKR framework, you want to invest in doing it properly, right? And so I think that the misconception that OKRs are easy is probably the first mistake, right? And so I think, again, going back to knowing why we're adopting OKRs is really one of the most important things. But I think we see, when we do take that approach of kind of that easier implementation route, we end up seeing too many OKRs, right? We end up seeing this laundry list of of tasks that become our OKRs, because
Very true.
we start to create OKRs for everything, right? Because we don't understand the difference between, what a good key result is versus a bad key result, and then too many. I was working with a client not long ago, that I was reviewing their OKRs, and they had 17 OKRs,
Oh my God.
but yeah, they were, but there was a common theme amongst them, and it was around retention and adoption. And I can't remember the third one, use or something like that. But we were able to take those 17 OKRs and trim them down into 2 objectives and a total of 5 key results, right? And so because there was so much overlap with that. And so I think that's one of the misconceptions there, is that we have to have a OKR for everything, right?
Okay.
And then I think I've worked with clients before where they've just taken their KPIs and turned them into their OKRs. And again, we're not investing in understanding the framework and why the power of OKRs. I guess I don't know. I guess just going back to the question, I think that's just the common misconception, is that OKRs are, just the objective and the key result. And we overlook really the change management aspect of OKR framework adoption, right? There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to adopting OKRs. And it's important that we understand not only the mechanics and the application and the execution of it all, but there's that human side of it, right? With the change management piece and understanding, making sure that our team members are trained and they know what the OKR framework is and what it isn't, the difference between a good objective and a bad objective, right? Knowing how it all works and knowing who the team members are on the team, right? And I think this is when we see OKR implementations that struggle, it's because we lack these things up front that I just described, right? And so I'll get off my soapbox there and stop, but I would say that's probably the biggest misconception.
Awesome. Very rightly said. To pick up your thoughts, the laundry list, right? I mean, that's something that most of us are struggling with. Uh, Crafting a right OKR becomes a challenge for most of the organization. I think, as you rightly said, investing the right time, right amount of training would definitely help in getting that done. And above all, the investment of training, the culture, right? The culture and the buy-in, the executive buy-in. Wherever we see that people, I'm not going to say that OKRs is going to change the entire it's going to give you a paradigm shift. And we are going to go to a magical land post implementation. As you already know, it's not a silver bullet that we can actually count upon. It's a kind of a process that you transition the entire team to that culture. The OKR culture has to be built in from top down. That becomes a habit. That becomes a kind of a culture which gets embedded in ourselves, so that it becomes easier for us to write OKRs. And at the same time, I think investing on the right coaching, having an OKR champion or a coach inside the organization helps them much better. Having to tweak that right direction, saying that, hey, stop here, we're not going the right direction. What are we doing in the retrospectives? Are we doing our weekly check-ins or not? These kind of checks and balances helps people to actually achieve that results. That's something, as you rightly said, just like converting your KPIs or task list to a laundry list and then adding to an objective is not going to solve the problem. Understanding exactly what you're going to deliver, the outcome, I mean, as I keep telling everyone, is that it's an outcome driven approach. So
Yeah.
think of what is your outcome that you're trying to drive towards this, and then probably writing key results or objective alongside that probably fetches you a better results than converting all whatever we do as OKRs. And I also see people get offended when I say this is your task. It should not be converted into OKRs.
Yeah.
So they get offended because it's whatever I do is important to me. I really need to add that to an OKR, and I want that to serve the company's purpose. So it takes some time, a quarter or so, for them to understand exactly what are we tracking. So we actually ask them to try it out, let them write something, and then come pull back and say if they realize their own mistake, they pull back much faster than you tell them you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That's something which what we have overcome as a platform, as a SaaS platform, OKR. How we have overcome this particular challenge is that we have templatized OKRs, right? I mean, for various functions and roles, and we also ensure that I'm there when the customer needs us. If there is a coaching that is needed on a function and also a platform support, we are there to help them out to ensure that, hey, probably this is not the OKR you should be writing. So
Right.
this something which actually helps us to have a better adoption rate. Otherwise, people drop out in a quarter or so, and 3 quarters is all you will see, and then you will not see them later. So these are
Yeah.
the main challenges we kind of foresee, and I think, as you rightly said, it's about the mindset and the culture that we bring in. So I
Absolutely.
just
One of the
want,
things
yeah, go on, Jim.
No, I was going to say one of the things I like to do with my clients is apply the so what test, right? When it comes to writing the key results.
Mm-hmm.
And a recent example I had was there was a survey that they wanted to send out, right? Send out survey to 100 people. Okay, so what? You've sent out a survey to 100 people. What's the outcome that you're looking for from that, right? And I start to take my client down that path, right? In terms of that, so what? So what? So what if we do that? And then what, right? And then what? And then eventually I think we get to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, by sending out that email to 100 people, right? Or that survey to 100 people. At the end of the day, really, I'm just looking for maybe some type of score based on some survey that I'm giving them, right? I mean, that's what we're getting at. And that's and I found that applying that so what type of approach to questioning key results has been
Very
really
true.
helpful for a lot of my clients.
We actually talk to them on three things. I mean, while writing key results, we ask them to think about the input that they have to do for that particular key objective, and the output. Like, if I'm doing 100 surveys out, and what is the output I'm looking at? So that becomes a metric. And what would be the outcome are you looking at? By sending this survey, what are we trying to achieve? So these
Right.
three things, we go by John Dirt's method of input, output, and outcome. And we have found that successful, I mean, till date. And sometimes, you don't really find the combination of three, and you write more outcome key results. Sometimes people start writing only the input key results. So that takes some time to practice, but otherwise this is the approach which has worked best for us also. So
Yeah, no,
that's,
that's great.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
sorry, go ahead.
any examples that you would like to share, where your customer examples where you're actually have done both together, or any experience, any industries that you can share, Jim, with us? We have, I think, another 6 minutes, 4 5 minutes. Probably you can take time, and then I'll take the audience feedback also.
Well, do we have any questions now that we need to jump into, or I want to make sure we have plenty of time for any questions?
Probably I've not opened up the question yet. If anyone has, probably can drop the questions in the chat, after Jim's answering. Probably we can take that question up also.
Sure. And I'm
Yes.
sorry, Ramya, your question one more time, please.
I was just asking, how has been your experience in working with OKRs and KPI? Any recent examples that you have where you had to work with OKRs and KPIs together?
So more recently, there was a client that I've been working with where we're really trying to connect their engineering outcomes to measurable KPIs from the business, right? They've gone through interesting engineering transformation to become more agile, and they've adopted Scrum and an agile way of working. And so the challenge right now that we're working on is really attributing the outcomes of a successful Scrum program and a successful implementation there, and how does that impact the KPIs. And so we've been working through that process in terms of identifying particular performance KPIs and customer KPIs. And so we've been going down that path, and it's been interesting because you're starting to see the connections between what engineering is doing on the back end and how it's impacting the business on the front end, right? I mean, but there's, because of the size of this organization, there's a lot of a lot of different data points in terms of being able to connect the different dots with amongst the different organizations within the engineering org, right? And so it's become this complex mapping exercise,
I
but
know.
that's what I enjoy doing, right? I mean, I enjoy working with these types of clients and figuring this type of stuff out. I don't have all the answers, I mean, but I get to work with smart people and we figure out the answer,
Very
and so
true.
I guess that's one of a more common, a more recent situation that I've been working with.
Awesome. I have a question here. Probably someone wants to know if any specific industries or businesses, OKRs and KPIs have become more prevalent in recent years. Is there some industries that are sizes that actually uses this a lot? I think that's the question by Karki here.
Well, I mean, I see it, more commonly right now with software companies, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I've worked with a number of software companies that are adopting the OKR framework. But the thing is, it's agnostic across industry. It really is. I mean, I had one of my first clients was a small outdoor retailer here in Salt Lake. They were a team of 15, and and they've grossed over $1 million. They had their first $1 million year when I started working with them, and that was 7 years into their journey. And so, I mean, they were a small outfit there, and they're doing awesome now. But I've also worked with Fortune 500 companies. I mean, so it's you can use it across the different industries, I guess. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, Ramya.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I get this question, I say that, the smaller the, is the best, way to start. The culture fits in earlier, and, as you grow, the OKR and the practices also, culture also grows along with you. If you're really a large organization, I think, I would definitely would advise someone to have a pilot run or probably do implement it in a phased manner so that it actually gets absorbed in the entire practices. That's something that I would probably kind of help my customer do. And I have one more question here, and how could you give an example of KPIs versus OKR for a call center? That's an interesting question. And also, the same person is asked also, what is the right way to track OKR progress? Nice questions. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I don't have a ton of experience with call centers. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing maybe there's some sort of NPS score maybe tied to
Very
that,
true.
or
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know without.
Uh, I mean, to answer that question, probably, the time, the customer resolution time, right? The time to answer the resolution, the call comes in place, and the time taken to resolve a query and creating that wow experience post that, right? I mean, those things can be measured as KPIs, and the customer NPS score, especially the NPS score, can be one of the metric that can be measured in call center. There are tons of other metrics also. Probably we can discuss offline, and then I can share you some templates for call center separately. And the same person is asked on the right way to track OKRs. Would you like to take that?
The right way to track the OKRs on that question?
Yes.
Yeah, the right way to track the OKRs would just be throughout your cycle, right? In terms of identifying, I mean, your OKRs for those use cases there could be that we maybe want to reduce call center times by a certain time frame, and the initiatives that we would be doing as part of that may be to implement a different call routing system or something like that, right? Some way that we're going to impact that key result. And I don't know if that answers the question or not.
So the right way, I mean, that answers indeed definitely, Jim. And I think the right way, probably I would, kind of indicate the timeline. If you're working in a very dynamic environment for like a call center environment, I think your tracking of OKR should be very, very shorter. I mean, not instead of quarter, probably you should be monitoring your OKRs every month on month, so that helps you to kind of improvise in a dynamic environment while like call center. And ideally, most of the organization track it quarterly, and for you, probably monthly could actually answer most of your issues can surface out in the month itself. And I have one more question. I think we'll have to extend another 5 minutes. I think we have questions here. I have one more great question from Aarti. We follow OKR and KR framework now. When should we actually look to integrate KPIs and OKR? So that's a fantastic question. So when do you think the best time to start integrating both together?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Yeah, because I mean, my thoughts go to, just the size of the excuse me, excuse me, how big is the organization and so forth, and really where do we want to go? I mean, I think it's interesting. You can start to have the conversation now. I would argue, right? I don't think it's too early to have that conversation. I would say in terms of integrating OKRs into KPIs, how comfortable do you feel with OKRs currently, right? How well is your OKR program currently operating? If you feel that your program is at a level of maturity where we can start to add new components to it, and in this case KPIs, I would say go for it, right? I mean, definitely have that conversation. But if we're still struggling with our OKR program to begin with, right? If we're not running our program effectively, if we've got a set it and forget it mentality when it comes to our OKRs, that's not good, right? And having KPIs to tie to that, that's not your problem. The problem is that your OKR program is run very poorly. So I would say that we definitely want a healthy OKR program. But in terms of having the conversation around which KPIs and integrating OKRs, I would encourage that conversation, now. But again, it's important that you have a healthy OKR program, because if you're not doing the exercise and the diet, then there's really no point in stepping on the scale at the end of the 3 months, right? And so I guess I'll leave you with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's something in my thought as well. When we think that we are really matured enough to have that conversation, and we are also able to identify the key metrics that actually has to be driven as KPIs. So I think that's when you can intervene and start kind of adding your KPIs, moving your business as usual metrics to KPIs, and then having your aspirations separately as OKRs. So that kind of checks and balances happens once your processes are matured and your understanding about the entire program is matured. That definitely happens in that time. I think that's been my take as well. I have I'll take one final question, Jim. I think please don't mind. I'm so excited. There are a lot of really interesting questions coming up. I really wanted to do. I don't want to stop. Are there specific industry or types of businesses where OKRs and KPI tend to be more effective? That's a question. That's a great question, Ari.
I would say, let's see, types of businesses where OKRs and KPIs tend to be more effective. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts there first.
I mean, as you already know, these are metrics, right? It's industry agnostic. We're not really sure. It's about the instead of the I would say specific industry. I would rather say the culture that we are in, right? The right culture and the right leadership with the right focus-driven team are much effective in delivering OKRs and KPIs than business. Industries or segregating them as industries or domains or whatever. I think it's a right mindset together who are actually willing to drive the outcome as well as the business as usual metric. If you have that leadership and also team together, any organization can thrive the best is what my take there.
Yeah, no, I would agree. The more effective part there is really what is the part that connects
The
with me. And
intent.
to your point, I think it's really about being invested in the framework and being diligent and a practitioner of it, right? To get the most out of it.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Oh, that would be all. That brings us to the end of the session, Jim. It was amazing talking to you. I've had so much of tons of questions, which I really enjoyed reading. I love the audience that who actually shared their experience as well. And we would like to stay connected. We have our goals accomplished community, which probably you would get an invite. You can join, and then we can have similar conversation now and then, or fortnightly once in our community itself. So that brings us to the end, and have a great day, Jim, for you. And we're going to wind up the day for us. And thanks everyone for joining in today. Stay tuned to our next session. This is Ramya signing off from Datalligence. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Have a
Appreciate your
great
time,
day.
Ramya. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.